An immigrant sets out on a dangerous and winding journey in search of medical knowledge, in an age ruled by superstition and fear. The story begins with an opening text explaining that in medieval England, medicine was almost non-existent, despite the ancient Roman legacy. At that time, the role of doctors was played by wandering barbers, men who could trim your hair, drain your blood, or pull a tooth. Meanwhile, far to the east, science was rapidly advancing. The year is 1021, England. The main character, a boy named Rob Cole, works at a stone quarry in exchange for a piece of bread. Covered in coal dust but proud of his small earnings, he carries food home, when he suddenly stumbles upon a street performance by a traveling barber, a man who lures in the crowd with tricks and promises of miraculous cures. That night, after dinner, Rob's mother is struck by a violent attack of what people call the disease of the bowels. When the boy touches her, he experiences his first vision. Time freezes for a brief moment. Terrified, he runs to the barber, begging him to help, but the man hesitates to interfere. When they return, the house is already filled with neighbors and a priest who can only offer prayers. Not wishing to challenge the church, the barber washes his hands of the matter. The prayer fails. By morning, Rob's mother has passed away. The neighbors take in the younger children, but no one wants an extra mouth to feed. With nowhere to go, Rob follows the traveling healer. The barber, however, does not need a burden. He drives the boy away and rides off, but Rob refuses to give up and runs after him. At the next stop, the mobile barber surgeon discovers the uninvited stowaway hiding inside his wagon. He tries to kick the boy out, but Rob's desperation melts his heart. That night, as they talk before sleep, the barber explains that the disease of the bowels cannot be cured. Rob's mother was doomed from the start. Years pass. The barber continues his trade from town to town, now assisted by a grown-up Rob. Together they treat villagers, set broken bones, and perform crude surgeries. One day, Rob asks if his mentor has ever wondered what lies inside the human body. "If we could only open it," he says. The barber grows stern. Such talk is dangerous. The church burns people for less, he warns, and forbids Rob from ever mentioning it again. But time is merciless. The barber's eyesight begins to fade. His hands tremble. Rob increasingly takes over the work, until one day, a patient dies after a simple tooth extraction. The villagers accuse them of murder, beat them, and burn their wagon with the old man trapped inside. Rob manages to save him. The barber survives, but suffers terrible burns. Refusing to abandon his mentor, Rob repairs the damaged wagon. The barber, blind and helpless, urges him to go on alone, but the boy stays. While the elder distracts the crowds with stories about slaying fire-breathing dragons, Rob learns the brutal art of medieval medicine, amputating limbs, placing leeches, and cauterizing wounds with red-hot iron. Seeing how much his apprentice has grown, the barber jokingly promotes him to a full partner. From now on, Rob too is a barber surgeon. As the old man's sight finally fades completely, Rob leads him to a group of Jewish physicians who practice far more advanced medicine. While the barber undergoes surgery and recovery, Rob stays with a Jewish family, learning their customs and observing their ways. The operation is a success. The barber can see again. Amazed by the doctor's skill, Rob asks where they learned such knowledge. One of them tells him about the great city of Isfahan, home to the wisest of all scholars, Avicenna. There, students from all over the world study the art of healing. The physician shows Rob a map of the known world. To reach Isfahan would take more than a year of travel, and Christians, unlike Jews, are killed in those lands. The barber, now cured, dreams of a peaceful future, but Rob is already obsessed with his new goal, to travel east and learn the true science of medicine. The old man reluctantly agrees and takes him to a port city, where Rob boards a ship. Months later, after enduring storms and seasickness, Rob finally awakens in the ship's dark hold. The voyage is over. As he steps onto land, the pyramids on the horizon tell him he has arrived in Egypt. After buying a sharp knife, the young man performs his own circumcision, a painful act meant to disguise himself as a Jew named Jeshua. He then joins a caravan bound for Isfahan, working as a camel driver. Along the way, he learns the customs of the Jewish travelers and notices a beautiful woman riding in a palanquin, Rebecca. One day, the caravan arrives at a silent city. Its streets are filled with corpses, the aftermath of a brutal raid by the Seljuks, a fierce nomadic tribe. Amid the sea of the dead, one little girl is found alive. Rebecca takes the child into her palanquin. On the road, Rob Cole notices that the girl has a fever and gives Rebecca advice on how to lower it. At the next stop, she invites him into her tent to help care for the child. Later that night, she reads stories from 1001 Nights. But fate strikes again. A massive sandstorm, a samum, sweeps across the desert, scattering the camels and burying travelers beneath the sand. When Rob regains consciousness, he finds only silence and ruins. Among the wreckage lies Rebecca's book of tales, the only trace of life left behind. With only one other survivor, a Jewish traveler, he continues toward Isfahan. One night, as despair overwhelms him, Rob recites the Lord's Prayer, unknowingly revealing his true Christian faith. His companion says nothing. By morning, the man is dead, taking the secret to his grave. Exhausted and near death from thirst, Rob finally reaches the city. After resting for a night, he makes his way to Avicenna's great medical school and begs to be accepted as a student. But he has no money and no letter of recommendation. The guards beat him and throw him into the street. An elderly man notices the boy lying in the dust and takes him home. When Rob awakens, he finds himself in a soft bed. The same man has been caring for him. Grateful, Rob explains his journey and his dream to study medicine under Avicenna. The old man promises to help. The next morning, the same secretary who ordered Rob's expulsion appears with clean clothes and instructs him to attend the lecture. When the teacher enters, Rob thanks the old man who rescued him, only to realize that he himself is Avicenna. The newcomer, now known as Jeshua, is offered a place to stay with another student. Slowly, he becomes part of the community, learning the foundations of medicine and enjoying the reckless pleasures of youth, drunken nights, laughter, and visits to the city's houses of pleasure. One day, Rob meets Rebecca again. She and the little girl survived the storm and came to Isfahan, where Rebecca is to marry Bar Kapara, a respected Jewish merchant. Rob and his friend are invited to the wedding, and as a gift, Jeshua presents her with the rescued book of Scheherazada's tales. Trying to suppress his forbidden feelings for another man's wife, Rob visits a brothel. There, his attention is drawn to a dark-skinned courtesan. When he touches her hand, time freezes again, the same strange vision he once felt as a child. Realizing she is dying, he carries her to the medical school. Together with Avicenna, he discovers a scorpion bite on her leg and saves her life. Avicenna, impressed by his intuition, begins to take special interest in the young man. That same night, they are summoned to the Shah's palace. The ruler has injured his wrist while executing a Seljuk messenger. The Shah is fascinated by the foreign student, who has seen more of the world than most men ever will. But the peace does not last long. The Seljuks, enraged by the death of their leader's son, send a terrible revenge. An infected man, carrying the plague, sent into the city as a living weapon. The patient Zero wanders through crowded streets, touching people until he collapses. Panic spreads as black boils appear on his body. Avicenna and his students are informed of the outbreak and warn the Shah that evacuation is the only way to stop the epidemic. But the ruler refuses. He seals off a part of the city, ordering a strict quarantine. The doctors choose to stay inside, determined to fight the disease to the end. Jeshua uses his strange gift to sense who can be saved and who is beyond help. Yet Avicenna insists they fight for every single life. When Bar Kapara, Rebecca's husband, flees the city in fear, Jeshua finds Rebecca herself gravely ill. He carries her to the madrasa and tends to her day and night. At the same time, he studies the black sores, searching desperately for a cause. His greatest breakthrough comes when he notices that the disease spreads through tiny parasites, flies and fleas that swarm from the bodies of the dead. The physicians begin killing rats, burning corpses in makeshift open-air cremations. Slowly, the number of deaths begins to fall. The doctor's desperate measures finally begin to work. Mortality drops, and the plague slowly fades away. When Rebecca recovers, she spends more and more time with Jeshua, drawn to his kindness and quiet strength. She tells him that, in her fever dreams, she saw herself as his wife, and him as a great healer, like Avicenna, curing the sick and teaching the next generation. Affection turns into a secret romance. Soon, the epidemic is over, the city gates reopen, and life cautiously returns to normal. Rebecca's husband, Bar Kapara, comes back home, while Avicenna and his students receive personal gratitude from the Shah himself. The ruler even speaks with Jeshua, calling him his friend. Later, during a lecture, Rob voices his growing concern. During the plague, they relied only on new discoveries, not on true scientific understanding. To truly know medicine, one must study the human body, but every religion forbids it. One day, a patient arrives suffering from the same intestinal illness that once killed Rob's mother. The man is a Zoroastrian, and his body, according to his faith, will not be buried with sacred rituals. Jeshua decides to use it for study. When the man dies, he secretly carries the corpse into the basement and performs a careful dissection, drawing what he sees with astonishing precision. Meanwhile, religious tensions grow in Isfahan. Many Muslims despise the Jews for their differences in faith. The city's high mullah secretly conspires with the Seljuk leader, planning to betray the Shah and seize the city. At the same time, Jeshua accompanies the Shah on a royal hunt and notices that the ruler hides his pain, dulling it with smoke from happy herbs. Soon after, the revolt begins. The first move of the insurgents is to arrest Avicenna and Jeshua, accusing them of heresy and witchcraft for desecrating a corpse. The Council of Elders sentences both men to death. Avicenna protests his innocence, but the decision is final. Jeshua tries to take the blame, confessing that he is a Christian, but the fanatics only want a pretext for violence, a reason to ignite an anti-Jewish riot. While the two physicians await execution in a dark cell, they pass the time discussing anatomy, the beauty and mystery of the human body. Meanwhile, the Shah summons the mullah for questioning. He dislikes that the cleric has grown too powerful and now acts as judge and ruler. The Shah orders the release of the doctors, but before his command can be carried out, he falls gravely ill, and the Seljuk army marches toward the city. Rob Cole and Avicenna are brought to the square for execution, but before the sentence is carried out, the Shah's loyal forces clash with the rebels, cutting down the fanatics. Chaos erupts across Isfahan. The Jews barricade themselves in their quarters, the Muslims attack in blind fury, and the soldiers fight to keep what is left of order. Amid the chaos, the doctors are summoned to the dying Shah. He is suffering from the same disease of the bowels and begs Rob to save him, to remove the source of his agony, the small organ known as the appendix. Rob hesitates. He has never performed such a complex operation before, but refusal means death for them all. He makes his choice. After giving the Shah a strong dose of opium to dull the pain, Rob begins the surgery. His hands tremble as he opens the ruler's abdomen, searching desperately until he finds and removes the swollen appendix. During the operation, he sees a vision of his mother, reminding him why he chose this path. The Shah survives the procedure, just long enough to lead his army into battle. He knows he will soon die, but not in bed. He chooses to die as a warrior. His final stand buys precious time for the citizens to escape through the eastern gates. At dawn, two armies collide before the walls of Isfahan. Rob and Rebecca flee together, but he remembers his teacher and turns back. The madrasa is engulfed in flames. Avicenna sits calmly before his burning library, the knowledge of centuries turning to ash. He dreamed that, even 1,000 years later, his school would still stand as a beacon of learning. Fate decided otherwise. Rob begs him to escape, but Avicenna has already taken poison. As Rob touches him, time freezes once more, the same divine vision as before. Avicenna blesses his apprentice, entrusting him with his book on the art of healing, and passes away surrounded by fire. Outside, the wounded Shah dies on horseback, bleeding as the flags of Isfahan fall from its walls in surrender. The mullah kneels before the Seljuk leader, showing submission, and the city burns. From afar, Rob Cole and Rebecca watch as black smoke rises above the ruins of Isfahan. In the final scene years later in London, an elderly barber tries to lure patients into his shabby medical wagon, but no one comes. A small boy explains, "It's because of the new healer from the East. He has opened a hospital where he cures the sick. His name is Cole." The old man smiles, realizing who it is. He asks the boy to show him the way, and together they walk down the cobblestone street. The child chatters excitedly about the great doctor who has dedicated his life to understanding disease and finding the way to heal it.